Welcome to Digital Marketing Summer School. My name is Patrice Valentine. I am owner of Profusion Web Solutions. For over 20 years, we've been building websites and helping small businesses compete and really thrive online. Our mission has always been to level the digital playing field, and this series of webinars is here to give you the tools to do just that. This is the first video in a series designed to explain what digital marketing is and help business owners and marketing managers make simple, effective changes that drive real results. This video starts where it all begins, on your website. So looking really at what makes a good website. Judging a website can feel somewhat subjective. After all, we've always been told that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? But when it comes to performance, there are objective standards that you can use to evaluate whether your site is doing its job. In this video, we're going to break down the core elements that make a website effective and not just pretty. These are practical, measurable things you can look for on your own to identify where you're strong and where there might be some room for improvement on your website. So let's dive in and see what makes a good website really good. So let's kick things off by talking about why your website really matters, because it absolutely does. Your website is your digital storefront. It's open 24/7, rain or shine, whether you and your employees are on vacation, you're sleeping, you're stuck in meetings all day, whatever it is, your website is always working for you, showing up for your customers even when you are not able to. It's also the first impression people get of your business. That first impression happens really quickly in about 0.05 seconds. If your site looks outdated or loads slowly, it could be costing you a potential customer before they've even read a single word of content that's on your site. A good website also plays a direct role in your sales process. It's where people fill out your forms, your contact form, your request a quote. They can potentially make purchases on your site, or they can just decide if they want to trust you with their money and their time. A strong website is going to be one that shows that you are a legit business. It tells customers, your partners, and even future employees that you are professional, modern, and trustworthy. It also anchors every other piece of your marketing as that central marketing hub. It's where your social media, your email campaigns, your Google ads, potentially Bing ads, all lead back to. And when it's built right, it also brings in organic traffic from Google thanks to search engine optimization. Here's the best part about websites and why we love them so much. You own the data on the website. You own the content, you own the insights. When someone fills out your contact form, you own all of that marketing data. That also means that if you're looking at the analytics, you get to see exactly what people are doing on your site, where people are coming in, what's turning them away. It allows you to continually and constantly improve the website for a good user experience. The bottom line is that a good website gives you a leg up on the competition. It's one of the best investments you can make to grow and future-proof your business. So if you've got a Facebook page and you're not concentrating on a website and you're using maybe Facebook or some other social media as your website, it is incredibly important to start your digital marketing off with a good website. And again, let's take a look at what are the core elements of a good website. Now that we know your website really does matter, these are the foundational pieces that separate an okay website from one that's really working for your business. I'm not going to go deep into each one of these bullet points that are on the screen right now just yet, because we are going to unpack each one of them one by one in the next slides. But here's just a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. You want clear and relevant calls to action on your website. Those are those little prompts that tell people exactly what to do next. Your website needs to load fast, ideally in under 3 seconds. Everyone is super impatient right now, and your site visitors are no different. If your site isn't loading fast, they're likely going to leave. Your design should feel clean and modern and actually reflect your brand and your values. Remember what we talked about with first impressions and how quickly people are making those when they come to your site. Your site also needs to be mobile responsive, because we all know that people are browsing from their phones more than ever. Especially important if you are a local business that requires local customers to find you. So mobile first is incredibly important for you folks. You want to make sure that your site is ADA and WCAG compliant. This helps ensure that everyone can use your site, including folks that may be differently abled. Your content should be fresh and current, not dusty and outdated from maybe 2019. We've all seen those sites that haven't been updated in a long time, and you can immediately start to lose trust from that website. So make sure that the site content is updated. Having a website search functionality built in is going to help your users find specific content quickly, and having strong security using SSL and other security features is no longer optional. It is expected on your site. So that's the big picture of what we're going to cover today. These are the elements that we're going to break down next in these slides so you can see how they work together to create a site that converts and performs, and one that we would give that A+ grade of actually being a good website. So let's kick it off by talking about the CTAs, or the calls to action, because these little buttons and links are a really big deal on your website. This is what actually generates the leads on your site. So it takes it from just being a brochure that tells people about you to encouraging people to actually fill out the form and get in touch with you. Your website visitors are busy and distracted and likely just skimming the content on your site. So your call to action needs to do one thing really well. It needs to guide them. It needs to be clear and direct. Don't assume that the user on the website knows what you want them to do next. You do have to tell them. And doing this, you're going to want to use action-oriented language. Instead of saying things like learn more, which is kind of vague, I'm not really sure what I'm learning more about, go for something more like schedule your free estimate, or download the guide, or get my coupon. Things like that are more specific and benefit driven. The more benefit driven, the better. If the user can look at your website and see what's in it for me, which again answers that the biggest marketing question is what's in it for me, that's going to be something that people are actually going to want to click on. That call to action will actually perform well for your site. Visually speaking, your call to action should stand out. You're going to want to use colors that contrast with the rest of the page. Make sure the button is large enough to notice, not really so large that it's obnoxious on the page, and place it where people will actually see it. Don't hide it just all the way down in the footer or where people might not be able to find it. You also see sites that maybe hide it within the text of the page. So, you have to read every single word on the page in order to realize that there's a call to action. We don't want to hide it. We want to make sure that people are really able to find that call to action. You also, like I mentioned, you want to focus on the value. Tell them what they're going to get. For example, download your free guide to boost your SEO is much more enticing than just a button that says download, right? People are going to know exactly what they're getting when they click that download your free guide to boost your SEO button versus just download. Of course, make sure it's mobile friendly. If your call to action button is tiny or hard to click on a phone, you will be losing conversions from those folks that are viewing on a mobile device. And last but not least, you want to test it out. Try different phrases, colors, maybe placement. Sometimes those small changes, you've heard studies where just by changing the color so that it was more obvious, or changing the verbiage to make it more obvious what you're actually downloading, those little changes, those little improvements can actually be huge in how many people actually take the action. Your call to action might be small on your website. It might be, it might not be the main focus. You might be there to educate, but when it's done right, they can pack a pretty big punch and be the whole reason that your website starts to convert. Whatever your call to action is, you are going to want to, like it says, test and optimize, and that might mean changing it. So if your website has been up for a while and no one is filling out your contact form and no one is downloading your free guide, or no one has made a purchase in a while, it might be time to check your call to action to make sure that it is still really relevant and compelling to your users. Now let's move on to another big one. This is load time and performance. This is for your website itself. So this kind of deals with hosting, and we are going to have a whole presentation on hosting coming up. That's our session number 2. So this is just a kind of a high level overview of what it talk about load time and performance. But this is one of those huge behind the scenes things that can make a really big difference in your website. Every second that your site takes to load, you are losing customers. Visitors aren't going to wait. They will bounce right off that homepage if it's not loading fast. That means fewer conversions, less engagement, and yes, even lower rankings on Google, because speed directly affects the user experience, search engine optimization, and ultimately your bottom line. So how do you speed things up? Some of the key optimization strategies. First, images. We see images and video loaded onto a website are usually the main culprit. You're going to want to compress them, resize them, make them smaller, or potentially use modern image formats like WebP, and set up what's called lazy loading. So the images don't load all at once. They load upon basically scroll, or as the page loads. Again, we're going to talk more about that in our hosting video. The next is caching. This is kind of like giving your visitors a shortcut. Your site remembers them and loads faster the next time they visit the site. This can happen in the browser or on the server, so whoever's hosting the site. And obviously hosting really matters too. If your website is on a slow server or it's shared with too many other websites, it can drag and lag. So look for a fast, reliable host and a CDN, which stands for Content Delivery Network. And again, I know this is a lot on hosting, but we will cover this in the next one. But that CDN is going to help by loading your site from the nearest server to the visitor. A little bit more on the tech side of things, there are also code optimizations you can make for your website, things like minifying files, combining scripts, cleaning up and removing unnecessary code or plugins, and cutting down on redirects. That's all going to make your site load faster and be just a little bit leaner for loading. And then last, you're going to want to test this regularly. There is a tool called Google Page Speed Insights. It's free, and it's going to show you how you're doing on both desktop and mobile, and it's even going to give you a list of suggestions that you can send along to your developer. Now, some of these things might not be able to be done just based on your website and what you're using, but it is good to know at least how you're performing and if there's little tweaks you can make to increase the speed and performance on your site. Speed, because it is such a big SEO indicator, a big indicator for how long people are going to spend on your site, it is not just a nice to have anymore. Having a really fast loading website that's high performing is essential. All right, now let's talk a little bit about design, because obviously looks do matter, and this is going to be one of the most subjective things we talk about. Everything else so far has been something that you can go test yourself, but looking at the design, a good website isn't just about pretty colors. You want it to be consistent. You want your fonts, your colors, your images, and your logo to all feel like they belong together. Your messaging, the words that you use on the page, should match your brand's personality, whether your tone is friendly, professional, maybe quirky like ours is a little bit, bold. It should feel consistent across every page. And just as a side note, this is true for all of your marketing, right? Your tone and your tenor and your design should all be really similar so that when someone comes across your brand, it feels familiar to them because they've seen it before. So keeping that consistency from page to page and really all marketing avenues is just good best practice. Consistency matters because having that consistency will build trust and recognition. If your site looks polished and cohesive, people are more likely to take your site seriously. There is what we talk about on the website specifically about white space. I know designers that do print layouts, they talk about white space or negative space as well. It's not wasted space. So we're not building a newspaper here where we have to have every single column, laid out on a page perfectly because we're, constrained to the size of the newspaper. We don't have those constraints that print media has. So give your content some elbow room and make everything a little bit easier to read. That's going to allow users to absorb more information that they're actually reading on your website. This helps your key messages stand out more and gives your site more of that kind of modern or contemporary clean feel. Again, you're not designing for print. This is for web. So take into consideration some of that space. You can increase the margins a little bit because we do have a little bit more breathing room. Another design principle to keep in mind that we look at a lot is the visual hierarchy. You want to guide the visitor's eye through the page. You can use size, so either font size, color, and placement to signal what is most important on the page. People are naturally going to scan your website in either an F pattern or a Z pattern. So typically that's always going to start in the upper left-hand corner and then go directly across that menu that's across the top. That's why you see so many websites that are built similarly with the menu and the logo at the top, because those are the most important key elements that people want to see. So in the F pattern, you're going to go across the top and then down the left-hand side. And so people are going to be viewing the initial content that's going to be on the screen above that fold. Then the fold is before any scroll happens. And then in a Z pattern, again, if you look at that little screen that's on my screen right now, and just draw like a mental Z over the top of it, that's up when we look at the heat maps for people viewing a website. So again, starts with the logo, goes across the menu, and then jumps diagonally down the page and then across the bottom. So they're scanning to view to try and find what they're looking for. So using F patterns or Z patterns just is smart design that's going to work with you, not against you, is your actual site. When your design is clean and consistent and intentional, intentional, it makes your business feel more professional, more trustworthy, and ultimately more memorable. And that is what we want when we're looking at a, again, good website. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about mobile design. So we've just talked about the design of a good website, and now here I'm going to shake that up a little bit because we do live in a mobile first world, right? Over 60% of all web traffic comes from smartphones and tablets. That means if your site isn't mobile friendly, you're, again, probably losing out on about half your audience before you even get a chance to talk to them. People expect a smooth and seamless experience on their phones. So if your site is clunky, hard to read, or maybe the buttons are too tiny to tap on, they're likely backing out and heading to another website. That again accounts for lost traffic, lost leads, and lost sales. So everything I said before about design being consistent and using the right fonts and creating that visual hierarchy, all of that is still incredibly important for your mobile first design. You just want to make sure that you're viewing it and testing it across all screen sizes so that if you are if the majority of your traffic does come from mobile devices, that we're really speaking to that. The way we do that is what's called responsive design. This means your website automatically adjusts to fit on whatever screen is being viewed on, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or a big desktop monitor. It doesn't matter the size, the website is going to respond as needed. On a mobile-friendly first design, you want to make sure that everything is touch-friendly. Buttons should be large so they're easy to tap, and links shouldn't be so close together that you need, like a Q-tip or a little toothpick to click on them. We've all, tried that where you accidentally click on the wrong link because they're too close together. So you need to make sure that you can do it with your finger and very easily. The text needs to be readable without pinching and zooming, and navigation should be clean and simple. That's why you've seen mobile sites have moved to the hamburger menu because it's really easy to click on the hamburger menu, just those 3 lines, and then it brings up a larger menu that shows up on the screen. Like I mentioned, your site should also be tested across multiple browsers and devices because what looks good on Chrome might look a little janky on Safari. So make sure that it looks good across all browsers. That might mean that you Apple users have to go make friends with an Android user. I know it might be hard to do, but just, cross that divide and go say hello and check your website on one of their phones and vice versa for Android users. Important reminder, Google now ranks your site based on its mobile version, not desktop. So mobile design is no longer optional. It is mission critical. Make mobile a priority, not an afterthought when you are designing your website. Okay, let's talk through accessibility. So accessibility does matter, and we've got up here the ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, and WCAG, which is Web Content Accessibility Guide. Your website needs to work for everyone, including folks with disabilities. Accessibility means making sure your site can be used by people with visual, auditory, motor, or cognitive challenges. It's really about creating an inclusive experience online where no one is left out and unable to use your website. Here are some key features that help with that. Again, a lot of these are done on the page, so more of a technical skill, but usually the modern content management systems like WordPress or Wix or Squarespace, they're all going to allow you to make these updates on the screen itself. The first one is alt text. This is where you describe images so that screen readers can interpret them. Bonus, it also helps with your search engine optimization. So I might, add alt text to the image that's on my screen right now that says, man working on a laptop in wheelchair smiling, something like that. So that's going to be the alt text for the image. So if someone couldn't see that image, they're able to kind of conjure up an image in their head based on the description that I put in the alt text. Color contrast is the next one. Make sure there's enough contrast between the text and the background so people with low vision or color blindness can easily read your content. Keyboard navigation. Your site should be functional without a mouse. So you need to be able to use the tab and the space in order to move around your website. And that's for folks using keyboards or assistive technology. You want to make sure your site has a clear structure. So again, this kind of goes back to that hierarchy we were talking about where you're using proper headings, logical layout so that screen readers and humans, this is good for both of these, technology and human alike, so that we can follow the format of your content. On forms, so if you have a contact form or a request and estimate form, you're going to want to label your form fields clearly so people know what to enter in the box. This is especially important for those using assistive technology. For multimedia, so things like videos or audio, you're going to want to make sure that you're using captions and transcripts so the content is accessible to everyone. This is kind of a new thing, so I know a lot of business owners or website managers, maybe while they've heard of these things, they're not sure why they're having to implement this right now. First of all, it's just the right thing to do. It makes it so your website is accessible to everyone, so you're not hindering anyone from being able to use your website. Second, it helps you avoid any legal trouble. There have been lawsuits over websites that are not ADA compliant. Beyonce and Domino's are two of the really big examples of those lawsuits, but there's also some at the local level. Other business owners that you may know might be dealing with this as well. And third, it actually improves your search engine optimization and opens your business up to a wider audience. Shows that your brand is thoughtful, professional, and inclusive, and that is just kind, and there's nothing wrong with that. Accessibility isn't just a checkbox, it is a business advantage and also a reputation builder. So this is one area that you can make a pretty large difference if you haven't done so on your page already. Okay, let's talk content and specifically why keeping your content updated matters so much. First and foremost, accuracy builds trust. When a customer visits your site and finds the wrong business hours, an old phone number, or outdated product information, they start to wonder, if this is wrong, what else is? Maybe this business just doesn't care so much about their copy. What else don't they care about? It gives the impression that your business isn't really paying attention. So you're going to want to make sure that your copy, your hours, your address, your employees, your products are all up to date on the website. Next up is broken links. These are a dead end for users and a super big red flag for search engines. So if search engines are visiting your website and scraping the content and looking where your website links out to, if you're linking out to a broken link, that can hurt your SEO. Same goes for old promos, past events, or outdated news. They make your site feel really stale. Just keeping updated content doesn't keep your site clean. It's also a powerful marketing tool because you can post fresh blog content that's going to tell both your visitors and Google that your business is active and knows what it's talking about. Blogging is not only great for SEO, it gives people a reason to come back as well. It also gives you something to post on social media. So if you're having one of those days where you just aren't sure what to post, go back through your blog posts, take a look and see what you posted that might have been important or educational or informative or entertaining, and then you can create social content around your blog posts as well. You can also add new testimonials or reviews to your website. That shows that you're still delivering value and earning customer trust. It is one of the most effective forms of social proof. Don't forget that other small but meaningful updates like new team bios, or if you have an outdated employee that doesn't work at your business anymore, make sure they get taken off. Update your FAQs. Again, if you're hearing people come into your business or they're calling your business and they're asking questions, and you're like, wow, that's a good question, keep a note of that and put that up on your website. Recent projects or case studies, company news, all of that makes a website feel fresh and alive. And that makes your business feel more current, more credible, and more trustworthy. Okay, let's talk about search functionality. This is really what we would consider like the unsung hero of a good website if it's implemented well. Think of the last time you maybe Googled something and you got taken to somebody's website and then you couldn't actually find the answer to the question that you were searching for on their website. So you were brought to a page, but then you still had to search and kind of hunt and peck your way around to be able to find what you were looking for. If a website has a search bar, then the user knows exactly where they can go. They can type in their content or their search query right there on the screen and then be taken directly into what they're looking for. Think of your site's search bar like a store worker or an associate who knows exactly where everything is. It helps visitors find exactly what they're looking for fast, and that reduces frustration and keeps them on your site and engaged longer. Now, search is especially critical on larger websites like e-commerce sites for sure. If you sell a product, you want to make sure that people can easily drill down and find your product. If you have an extensive blog or a resource library, you're going to want to make sure that you have a product search on there. Your search bar can become a primary navigation tool for users who know what they want but maybe just can't find it. Done well, it can actually drive better conversion rates because people find what they need quickly and are more likely to take action, whether that's making a purchase, filling out a form, or just reading more content and keeping them on your site. A great search experience starts off with accurate and relevant results. And if you can, just add in the auto suggestions as you type so that people can start seeing the actual content on your site as they're typing in what they're looking for. If there's filter and sorting options, that's even better. And a helpful no results found message with next step, not just a dead end. So if it's no results found, fill out our contact form and we can help you find what you're looking for. Give people an option so it's not just say, hey, we didn't find any results and dead end right there. The placement of your search bar also matters. Make sure your search bar is easy to find. You typically will see this up in the header as an ideal placement for this, or even down in the footer, or both places. There's no reason why you couldn't have it in both places. Here's a little bit of a pro tip. You can use search analytics to see what people are searching for most often on your site. This insight can guide content strategy, product decisions, and even search engine optimization. And it can just help you figure out what people are doing on your website and maybe figure out what you might need to add in order to completely answer their questions. All right, we're getting close here. Let's talk now about security, your website security. Again, this goes into kind of hosting because a lot of this are things that you maybe won't do as the business owner, but things that you're going to want to be aware of. If your website doesn't feel safe, people are not going to stick around, period. Let's start off with a very basic thing here. That's the SSL certificate. That's that little padlock in the browser bar, and that means the site is encrypted and safe to use. If you do not have an SSL certificate and people are using Chrome, and I think now even in Firefox, they're going to see a message that says not secure. So on my screen where you have that little padlock, rather than the padlock being there, it's going to say not secure and then your web address. That doesn't build a lot of trust or a good feeling in your site visitors. You want to make sure that when people visit your site, they know that it is safe. If you go to your website right now and your URL switches from HTTP to HTTPS, that means you have the SSL installed. That is no longer optional. That is expected behavior. Without it, again, modern browsers are going to literally flag your site as not secure, and that is truly a trust killer. Google also gives preference in search rankings to secure sites, so this one is not only a win for trust, it's also a big win for SEO. Security really is all about protecting your users' data, whether it's a contact form, payment details, or just browsing. A breach can not only cost you money, it can damage your reputation in a heartbeat. Showing visitors that you take security seriously tells them that you are a true professional, you care about their privacy, you're not cutting corners, and that builds real credibility in your business. Beyond your SSL, there are a few other must-haves. The first is keeping your software up to date. No outdated plugins or platforms or short code that's showing on your website because it doesn't, your plugin maybe doesn't play well with the application anymore. So making sure that your software is up to date. Use strong passwords and limit administrator access. If you go into your website users and you see that you have 10 employees that have access to your website, but they haven't worked for you in 5 years, that is a security breach waiting to happen. So you want to make sure you're limiting your admin access. Make sure that your host regularly runs malware scans and uses firewalls. And then again, we're going to talk more about this next time, but choose a hosting provider that offers secure, reliable backups in case something ever does go wrong. Again, there are 30,000 websites that are hacked every single day. And I talk to a lot of small business owners and they say, well, I'm just a small business. No one wants to hack my website. Why would they want to do that? You're exactly the person that they want to hack at this point. So make sure that your website is a trusted, secure website, because honestly, a trusted website is going to equate to a trusted business. Okay, so I've covered a lot of the core elements, the core things that are really objective that you can go through and check off and say, yep, I have that. Yep, I have that. But there was a couple bonus tips that didn't really fit onto their own slide. So we wanted to include those so you could take things even further. We've talked about this a couple of times, but first, use analytics. There's tools like Google Analytics or heat maps or Google Search Console that are going to show you how people are actually using your site. It's going to show you what they're clicking on, where are they dropping off, what page are they exiting on, what pages are getting the most attention. And when you understand user behavior, you can make smart and data-driven decisions and not just like willy-nilly, like, well, it feels like a good idea to remove this page. That thing you just removed might have been the most popular element on your website. So those data-driven decisions are going to lead to more conversions and ultimately a better user experience. Next up is social proof. Again, we talked a little bit about this, but adding those testimonials, reviews, and case studies, those go a long way in building credibility. People want to see that others have had a good experience with you before they commit. It doesn't have to be fancy, just real, honest feedback from happy customers. That alone can boost confidence and reduce hesitation in purchasing. This is especially important if you sell higher ticket items. If you're selling, a $5 sandwich, it's not going to be a big emotional decision for me to buy that sandwich. However, if I'm buying a car, if I'm hiring a contractor, if I'm, using an electrician that's going to be $1,000 or more, I'm going to have more emotion tied to that. And I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision. So seeing that social proof is going to help me feel good about the decision even before I've made it. And then finally, make sure that you have a clear value proposition above the fold. Now, a value proposition, I think, is something that we all learn in like marketing 101, right? This is what tells people what you do, who you do it for, and why they should care. So the what's in it for me factor. You've only got a few seconds to capture your user's attention. So you don't want to waste that space with vague taglines or stock photos or things that just aren't going to be important to your user. Be clear, be bold if that's your type of communication. Small details can make a big difference when it comes to keeping visitors engaged and moving them along towards action, towards your call to action. Okay. I know that we have covered a lot in this presentation, but I really wanted to just give you some real objective things that you could go through page by page on your website and see, does it answer a few of those questions? Is the call to action above the fold? Can people navigate through my site quickly? Is there a search function? Does it load quickly? Is my contact information available and ready for someone who wants to get in touch with me? So there are some really specific things that you can go through and look at your website. And if your site simply isn't performing the way you want it to, if you're not getting leads regularly, if you're not getting people reaching out to you saying, hey, I saw you on, or I saw your website and I have some questions and I now want to, have a meeting with you. Or if you're not getting sales from your website, some of these little things to tweak might be all you need in order to take your website from something that might be really pretty to something that might be really pretty and it works for your business. Hopefully this was helpful for you and gave you just some ideas to kind of get going on your own website. We put out webinars like this regularly and all of our contact information is on the screen. If you want these delivered directly into your inbox, go to profusionwebsolutions.com/newsletter and give us your name and email address and we will make sure you get these before anyone else. We also regularly post on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, so go ahead and give us a follow over there. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us by phone or email. All of that information is on my slide right now. Thank you very much for your time and head on over to our website to make sure you get the rest of the summer school videos.